When humans were first introduced to the wider galactic community, they were seen as a joke, a bad bar joke at that. With no natural offensive or defensive capabilities aside from a dense musculature and a strong endoskeleton, there's nothing that they could bring to the community that'd be considered valuable. This is why it did not take long for humans to be looked at as a resource unto themselves. In spite of no natural offense or defense capabilities, they are still Death Worlders, meaning that they have their uses. They have entertainment value, as they will not break so easily when placed against a few cerulean slicehounds. The first time a human went against one, the human actually got down low on one knee and said, "Puppy," quickly making friends with the hound and pack bonding with it. This can also be seen when a human is around other sentient species for an extended period of time. When it was found out that the humans would pair bond with other humanoid species enough that they would actually attempt reproduction over and over again, to the point in which their progeny would not want to continue a legacy with their own, the leaders had to do something. The decision was made to strike at every human ship on the way to their death world, leaving none alive, then destroy their fleet and forcing their population into submission. Then the humans would accept the terms that would limit them to their own home sector. They would then raid the human worlds and take as tribute everything they wanted and simply leave. If they did not capitulate, then there was only extermination, as the attacking forces would melt the human homeworld and all colonies to glass. This is how it has been done. Humans, however, had other ideas. On the way to the humans' homeworld, they found several human transports. Most of these are what humans call Corvette class. It seemed as though the plan was leaked, as the human ships seemed to instinctively bolt from the approaching forces. Even if approaching forces could only get close enough to launch an attack, the human vessels always had some sort of counter, some sort of shield for themselves. The human point defenses would shred through any guided ordnance, and nimble human ships could avoid all ballistic weapons. What surprised the fleet the most were the human shields, though. These shields seemed to be designed to not just deflect energy weapons, but to distort the phase cannon shots before impact. Even if received a strike, the shields seemed to drain the bolt, giving the human ship a power boost. In hindsight, the fleet should have parked their pride and simply went home. Yet part of them insisted that they must continue the mission no matter what. The humans have a term for this: hubris. Whenever the subject comes up, the humans always talk about how it always bites you in the ass. The fleet arrived at the human home sector between the rotational path of their third and fourth planets. Immediately, they noticed large human ships reaching cruiser class, that is, and a single battleship class. The humans began to demand that the assault fleet would draw peacefully from the human space. They received no message, as the assault fleet would not talk until they have shown their superiority. As they advanced, the human ships began to merge into their own fleet. Looking across at the human homeworld defense fleet was easily outnumbered 35 to 1, but it did not run at all. In fact, civilian ships even began to arrive as well. The civilian ships kept to the edge of the formation, but they were still present. Then something happened. The majority of the human ships disappeared from the assaulter's sensors. Switching to a magnificated view, the ships are still present. This was odd. An anomaly, perhaps, was all they thought. It doesn't matter. As the assault fleet was closing in to optimal range, then suddenly warning lights began starting up, and sounds began blaring across every single bridge. Across the assault fleet, they all picked up multiple ordnances approaching. This would be a full minute before they struck, so the captains decided to simply stay on target. The assault fleet fired its weapons as the human ordnance began to impact their targets. A near few ships are actually out of the fight as the assault fleet begins to fire. Their fixed phase energy cannons began to fire in waves towards the human fleet, firing usually using magnification as the sensors still could not pick up most of the fleet itself. The assaulting aliens believed that only a few volleys would be enough, as each volley had the potential of taking out 40% of the human fleet with each strike. To their absolute shock, the only thing they heard from their own comms officers was, "No effect on target. Negative impact on target." They were all shocked as more of their ships began to go kablooey from human ordnance. The human fleet began to advance as another wave of phase pulse energy struck their shields. The assaulting alien force believed the humans totally defenseless as they looked at the ships. They could see blue, green, and red flashes of failing shields. It was clear that they were no longer able to stop any of the phase cannons. Firing another volley at the humans, everyone looked on in shock as the cannon bolts just dissipated or bounced off the shields. Shields that just could not be active because they had just failed. This was a shock for sure, but seeing this, as the phase bolts are ineffective, the assault fleet added more torpedoes into the mix. Firing as fast as possible, they tried to saturate and overwhelm the human defenses. In response, the humans sent out decoys, chaff, counter-torpedoes, and number of point defense cannons on each human vessel clearly outweighed their needs as the torpedoes were torn apart in very short order. It was though that this was layers upon layers of different type of ordnance used to shield them. Adding the old ballistic magnetic accelerators into the mix, the enemy fired them all frantically at any human ship still on their sensors. These rounds struck but seemed to be deflected away as part of the hull would seemingly explode, forcing the projectile to tumble away harmlessly. The same thing happened with the 4 torpedoes that made it through the human defenses, yet there was still no penetration on the human ships. They were just advancing. After losing nearly 45% of their forces, the assaulting fleet stopped firing for a few moments, reorientated themselves, and fired everything at once, aiming directly at the center of the human formation. They wanted to strike the human battleship and take it down. Due to being the fastest ordnance fired, the wave of phase cannon bolts hit first. The assaulters saw the shields on the human ships fail, and with that down, the shots were still being halted. Even after a second shield that they did not notice seemed to fail, the shots were still not getting through. As more of their ordnance was being halted by the humans and more of their own ships was being destroyed, the assault fleet admiral screamed, "What does it take to get through human shields?" With the next volley of human fire penetrating his own lines, the admiral looked, and with almost 60% of their forces lost, the assaulting admiral ordered the withdrawal. As they turned to jump away, another wave of ordnance suddenly came in from a different angle. Where did this come from, they all thought. The assaulting fleet tried to make sense of it. This was no anomaly. The humans can travel undetected. What is all they could think. Losing under the 9% of their starting forces before jumping away, they all left confused. How did the battle go this way? How did the humans have some sort of protective layer? It was as though they always had some sort of shield to block them, but they also had something that shielded them from the sensors. What the hell? Reaching a safe distance, the admiral and the surviving captains convened to discuss the battle. The results were clear. They had been able to take out a few human ships, but only a few of the smallest ones, so they could in fact hurt the humans. But the humans could kill them. Not only that, but the humans seem to have multiple fleets when all other sentient species only have one. And not only that, they couldn't seem to track the second fleet at all until they fired at almost point blank range. It is by sheer chance that the assault fleet was already leaving when the second human fleet arrived. It is clear at this moment that they would need to immediately apologize to the humans and hope that the humans do not seek vengeance. They thought about it and thinking maybe offering a few of their progeny to satiate the humans is in order. This was one of the many ideas that was thrown around before they even thought about contacting humans again. Yet it is clear that no matter what, they can only hope that they have not awakened the sleeping giant, as at this point, a young officer reminded them of another human phrase, a human phrase they should have thought up before they even started this mission, and a phrase that made everyone's blood turn to ice. Fuck around and find out.